very exciting. We're here with Mary Jo, who's a pioneer in sustainable production. And, you know, sometimes people aren't sure quite where to start. So Mary Jo, can you tell us how this came to be, how you got started in sustainability?
Sure. For me, it started with a personal epiphany of how I was living my life and thinking about how I could reduce myself and my family's impact on the environment, and then a lot of complaining about the waste of the film industry, and a hard conversation with myself, looking in the mirror saying, you know, you're a producer, you're in a leadership position, you can actually affect change and do something about this, and dictate and work on implementing sustainability. So middle of the night, woke up, went through every line item in a film budget and thought about what each department could do. And then, oddly enough, fun fact, implemented, first film that I implemented sustainability on was a movie called Lucky You, which we shot for 7 weeks. We shot it mostly in LA, but shot for 7 weeks here in Las Vegas. So that was my start of my journey, and then every production that I did thereafter, always trying to raise the bar, think of new, innovative ways to push the industry forward in reducing our industry's carbon footprint.
So let's talk about True Detective Night Country. So how did you learn about this project? How did it come to be? What did you first talk about with the studios?
Great. Well, I was looking for a project and have made a commitment to only working on projects that have a climate environmental component to them, and very interested in working with female creators and directors and showrunners. And I was introduced through HBO to Issa Lopez to become a creative partner for her, to be the boots on the ground person who is taking the project from the scripts that she had at the moment that I met her, which was a pilot script and some drafts of the other episodes, through delivery and launch of the show. And so, you know, for those of you who haven't seen the show, True Detective is about two female detectives who are solving a crime in the high Arctic of Alaska, centered around a science research facility that is tangential to a mine that is toxically polluting an indigenous community. In addition, there's a cold case of a missing and murdered indigenous woman. So it's a very intersectional story, and really fulfilled all of my requirements of the kinds of content I want to produce.
So you learned about the production. You want to do content that has meaning. Then as an executive producer, what are you looking for when, you know, in a location, in how you're going to set it up from the very beginning? What do you do? What do you look for?
Well, it was interesting. The HBO production department had done some preliminary research. The story takes place in the high Arctic of Alaska. They had looked at Alaska, they had looked at parts of Canada, they looked at Iceland. And when I came on board, my process is to sort of evaluate where is the most infrastructure, where, what does it visually give us, and does it fulfill the sort of vision that the showrunner and director had. And when I met Issa, I said, well, we need to go to Alaska. She hadn't been to Alaska, so we took a trip to the high Arctic, to Kotzebue and Nome. Kotzebue is 29 miles above the Arctic Circle. It was minus 22 degrees on our scout, and we all stood there soaking in the environment, but going, there's no way we could put cast and crew out in these elements for any length of time on a large-scale production. Canada was compelling, however, the areas that looked like Alaska had similar problems where they were inhospitable from a weather standpoint, and very taxing on fly. You could only fly to these locations. So it would have been an enormous carbon emissions and an enormous carbon footprint to contemplate that. So what Iceland gave us was landscapes that were very similar to what we were seeing in Alaska, snow, ice, and a lot of our locations were within a 30-minute drive from a city center. And they had just increased their tax credit to 35%, so that sort of sweetened the deal. They have a very young and burgeoning film industry, but really hardest working local crew that I've ever seen, and they know how to work in those elements. But it was still cold. I mean, we were shooting in 22 degrees instead of minus 22 degrees, and suiting up in Arctic jumpsuits, and we filmed for 2 months in the dark, in the snow, in the ice, in January and February.
Okay, so decided on Iceland.
And really I look at, is there local crew? Can we avoid flying everybody in? Do they have resources? Do they have equipment? Not wanting to, transportation is one of the biggest emitters of emissions. So you want to try to limit as much as you can. We still had to bring people in, but I think we did a lot better in Iceland than we would have elsewhere.
So it's pretty easy to start planning those sustainable production practices given the infrastructure of Iceland.
Right. And then the other bonus to Iceland is that the country is run on 100% clean energy. So 63% of that energy is geothermal and the rest is hydroelectric. And the entire country is wired and set up for EV vehicles. We had over 40 EV vehicles that we rented for cast and crew. We saved about 4,000 gallons of gasoline by renting EV vehicles, and the people who live in Iceland it's the way of life for them. So there was an openness to, I came in and sort of had a talk with everyone and said, we are going to implement sustainability. HBO put resources into it. We had a wonderful director of sustainability named Heidi Kinberg, and I worked in tandem with her to really source how we were going to do this. We used a lot of batteries. We were looking for a battery-powered generator, and they did not have one in Iceland, but one of the facilities managers was interested in investing in one, so he purchased one for the show, and now that electric battery-powered generator lives in Iceland and has been utilized on other productions. So conversations and communications up front with everyone, and also staffing, and making sure that you have a staff on the ground that can help facilitate the integration of sustainability.
So that's a lot right there.
Sorry.
What was the...
Stop me.
No, that's great. So it sounds like with EVs and geothermal and whatnot, how did that affect the carbon footprint?
Yes, our carbon footprint was a lot lower in Iceland than it would have been in other places. And Heidi actually did a study and took our carbon emissions, our footprint, and then did an analysis of other areas that we could have shot in the U.S., Alaska, Canada, and it would have been 2 or 3 times more than it was in Iceland due to clean energy. Anytime we were shooting on our stage facilities or indoors and were able to tie in, we were plugged into the clean energy grid. So you can imagine the bonus of that. And it was quite aspirational, right? I mean, we were all living in this extraordinary country with clean air, clean water, low emissions, and it felt like this is possible. And what we really need is government support, we need investment, and we need technology to catch up.
So with this ethos that you brought and the support of HBO, can you tell us about how the crew responded?
Yes, the crew was amazing. I don't think there's anyone what I usually do is I talk to the creative department heads who I'm very close with in the early days of setting up the show, and then we start to talk to their crews and the rest of our crew, and we message and we alert everyone that this is how the production is going to run. We do a lot of emails and messaging, and here are the protocols, and here are the things to think about. Heidi was very instrumental, and she then took it to a granular level with every department and walked through with them the possibilities of what they could do. And everyone in Iceland, again, like I said, it's a way of life there, so they really embraced it. And so did our crew from the UK as well, and some Americans. And there's not really these days, there's really no pushback. We're also seeing, especially in the United States, that the unions and crew members are now, there's a sort of, for me, this story had themes of environmental racism, climate action, violence against women, and it's all connected. And, that was Issa Lopez, to her credit. What's a sort of genius about the show is detective genres are very exciting to watch and are a very popular genre. And what she was able to do, and she calls it her soul agenda, S-O-U-L, and she was able to infuse themes that reflect the world that we're actually living in and make you think about those themes as you're watching a very entertaining, compelling detective show.
So definitely integrated in.
Yes.
Don't know you're watching a show
Yes.
about climate change. Okay, so we probably have a lot of folks here from the supply chain. I think every single piece of the supply chain is probably out in this building somewhere. What are you, as an executive producer, what are you hoping for, looking for, wanting in your supply chain for production?
Yes. I think what we really need to focus on now is decarbonizing our industry. And what we really need is cost competitive, clean mobile power. We need batteries, we need generators, we need equipment that can be run on clean energy. It's the only way forward if we're going to survive. And I think everybody here is aware that we're in a global climate crisis, and emissions are a huge factor. Our industry, though we're not the highest emitting industry, we are a very high emitting industry. So it's time for change, and we need to accelerate it. Because as you all know, we've all seen more catastrophic climate occurrences happening every day, almost. And I believe that those climate occurrences will start to affect our work. And I've heard from, producers and crew members in studios that there are productions that have been shut down because of wildfires and hurricanes. And just moving a crew out of Louisiana because of hurricanes coming is millions of dollars. And we all saw during COVID the investment and the budget adjustments that were made to get our industry back to work. I believe that if our industry is to survive, we're going to need to make those similar investments. And I know I was sit on a committee with an Interguild Alliance through the Producers Guild of America, and we are in conversation with the heads of all of the unions. And there's almost every union now has eco committees, and we're all talking about it. And we need advancement, we need acceleration, we need education and training. And I know we can do it because we've done it with, we took, film to digital, we took analog to Avid. It's time for us to move in this direction. So innovation and acceleration for all of these suppliers.